What happens when you give us the stage? What happens when you let us speak? What happens when we can be heard? Goosebumps, truth, direction. That's what we're doing here. And we appreciate you tuning in. And I'm going to take a moment to let some people know out there who might not know, because not all the time the people we want to tune in. I just got a text message from our mayor, Don Iverson, saying powerful stuff. Thank you. I said, do you mind if I share that? Because it's good to know who knows. He said, yeah, I think it's my turn to listen. Taneya Rogers is coming on stage next with her story, her experiences. Not born in the country, but definitely feels what the country can do to you. Taneya.
I would apologize for having paper in my hand, but I'm kind of tired of apologizing, so. I deliberated over the appropriate approach for addressing this audience. I contemplated digging up statistics, rifling through news articles, researching legislation and processes that negatively impact Black communities, but then I paused. I figured that if you're tuned in to a forum such as this, then I can safely make the assumption that on some level, you're actively invested in making progress and you can access that information yourself. I also equally think that it is somewhat sadistic to build a system that is exclusive and inflicts pain on another group, sustain and benefit from that system, find protection in that system, then ask those most disenfranchised by the system to research and find the fixes for you. We don't ask victims of fraud to provide financial counseling to the fraudster, nor would we ask a survivor of sexual abuse to provide counseling to the rapist. Yet society has normalized asking those who have fallen victim of racial prejudices and systematic injustices to offer the solutions without actively doing the work themselves. I abandoned the PowerPoint idea. I contemplated instead on what exactly brought me here. How does the woman raised on an island that boasts of tolerance and whose national anthem says, every creed and race finds an equal place, wind up on a platform addressing racism and injustice? My introduction to racism took place when I first moved to South Carolina. It began with cautions as to what establishments I should avoid for my safety because they proudly flew the Confederate flag. It threaded through as I began to tutor in a predominantly Black middle school and held conversations with educators. And they told me more and more about the significant gaps in funding. It showed up again as a peer mentor to a young man, a member of the Geechee people, direct descendants of African slaves. And he's telling me that he's the first of his family to ever make it to college. This was the first time I was faced with my privilege. Coming from a country that was governed by people that looked like me, with access to healthcare and an education system and other systems built in my best interest, and I took it for granted. Still, these were just learnings. I had never before considered myself an activist, and I still don't. But then I became a mother, and that changes things. My first son was born in South Carolina. We lived in Texas for a year before moving to Canada. By the time he was 2 years old, I can recount at least 3 instances where I was asked to leave a space while holding him in my arms for no other reason beyond my kind was not welcomed. That little boy is now 15 years old. He is smart. He is handsome. He loves basketball. He can solve a Rubik's Cube in under 15 seconds. He makes a great omelette. He will still run through the sprinklers with his younger siblings. And more often than I may give him credit for, he blurts out musings that display such in-depth thought and wisdom that I momentarily forget that those words fall from juvenile lips. My 15-year-old son is Black, and he stands 6'3" tall, and as a mother, I am scared, and my confidence is eroded. I'm not one to coddle my children. My role is to provide my son with the tools for success. But how do I prepare him for a system that at its best barely tolerates his presence and at its worst deliberately and systematically plots his demise? I feel unequipped as a mother for most conversations. I am expected to explain concepts to my children that are not reflective of my own upbringing. My daughter asked me earnestly, "Mom, my best friends are all white. Do you think they understand that I am Black?" And with her questions, the words of Nina Simone began ringing through my ear. Lord, please don't let me be misunderstood. Please don't let their Blackness be misunderstood, mistaken as a threat, misjudged as ignorant, misrepresented as worthless. How does one explain a Black experience? Why are explanations still necessary? Why was questions of why is he being arrested or what did he do ever appropriate when addressing a murder victim? Why should I ever have to justify simply wanting to be alive? But this is Canada, and Blacks traverse these lands with far more security than those south of the border. And it's not because our systems are better structured for our success, but truthfully, because the systems of oppression have chosen our Indigenous brothers and sisters as the preferred target. We ride the coattails of indifference towards an entire people. Our racism here is polite. The type that would allow the old gentleman at the car show to smile and warmly invite my Black babies to sit in his vintage car for photos, the one that sports the Confederate flag on the hood. Because it's just history. And like many other racist microaggressions, we can disregard the implications. While I commend those today that are willing to lend an ear, the silence of so many others, specifically non-people of color, has left a pit in my stomach. I pray that among you sits a pool of allies that would speak up for my children if their lives depended on it. I stand here as a Black woman who is emotionally drained and hurt and traumatized by images of men that look like my father and my uncles and my cousins and men that I've loved, murdered under circumstances that I'm confident their white counterparts would have survived. I stand as a mother, scared, and desperately wanting to protect her children, constantly seeking the balance between giving them the tools to survive, but without wanting to plant more seeds of bitterness in their hearts. And finally, I stand in solidarity with every looter, every marcher, every protester, and every fighter with the same vigor that I would support our troops that have fought for our freedom. Because make no mistake, what we are witnessing today is in fact a fight for freedom. I am Taneya Rogers, and I am sick and tired of having to say that Black lives matter.